Alright, what's going on, guys? Last time I think I filmed a video, my ZX6R just died on me, and I suspected that it was the stator or the rectifier. So, as I think I ended that video with telling you, is that I was going to make a little video on the process of replacing those parts, just in case anyone else has a similar issue in the future. So my parts finally came in. These are just off of eBay. They're pretty cheap. I'm not really too concerned with quality for this bike because, you know, it's kind of my beater bike, so it is what it is. If it dies on me, oh well. Chances are it's in a parking lot and I'm just practicing wheelies or something. But yeah, we got new stator here, rectifier, and a gasket as well. So really that should be all that I need to fix this, assuming I don't find anything else when I dig into it. So I'll try to kind of document this process a little bit. I guess to start off, I took off the rear seat, which I probably didn't have to, but it's easy enough to come off. Took off the front seat, and then next step is going to be removing the gas tank. And if you're unfamiliar with this, there's a bolt here. You're going to have two on either side and one up here, and that should be it. And you should be able to pull the gas tank off. Alright, so I pulled those two bolts off, got this fed through here. The last thing, try to get this in so you can see it. Here's where it connects to your gas tank, the inlet, or I guess outlet of your gas tank. And it's got this little quick connect fitting on it. So you just have to kind of push the sides in, pop that down, and then pull it right off. And that is essentially how you remove the gas tank on this. Okay, so the gas tank is now off, and this gives me access to all the plugs and stuff down here. There's a bunch of wiring harness connectors and stuff. And sure, you could probably do this entire install without removing the gas tank, but I think this is just going to make it a whole lot easier, and because I'm pretty sure that some of the plugs that I need to get to are in here. I'd rather just take it off instead of trying to fish around in there and plug stuff in. The other thing is because I'm curious if one of these wires is shorted somewhere and it's like grounding out on the frame or something, and it's just draining my battery. So while I have this all taken apart, I'm going to also inspect that, but we'll get there when we get there. Alright guys, so the two pieces that we're going to be replacing here. The rectifier is right here. Now, I don't have a belly pan on this motorcycle, but my buddy's bike is actually here. He's got the same one as me. Typically they would have this belly pan, but I have it. I just have it removed because I don't really care what this thing looks like. So you'd probably need to take off that belly pan if you're doing this on a bike that has full fairings on it. But since mine doesn't, we'll pretend that I just already took it off. So here's our rectifier. The other piece that we're going to be replacing is the stator, which is behind this cover. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and lay this bike on its side, since I have cages on it and frame protection. If you don't have that, you could probably lean it up against a wall or something, or if you have like honestly a lawn chair would probably work. But the purpose behind laying it on its side here is so that I don't have to drain all the oil out and then just refill it again. So I'm hoping laying it on its side, I'll just be able to pull this cover off, not drip any oil, and be able to do this as easy as possible. Alright, feeling like a true Harley boy right now because I had to lay her down. But here we go. If you're doing this method, be smarter than me. and don't lean it right against your workbench here, so you could barely open any drawers up. But we'll make it work. It's already on its side, shouldn't need a whole lot of tools. I'm just going to kind of let this sit for a second so that any oil that was up in here has some time to kind of just run down to the other side of the engine. And then we'll go ahead, start pulling this off, pulling this guy off here, and get these parts replaced. Alright, so actually I lied. There's one more thing we need to do before we start digging into all this, and that's going to be take off this side fairing here. Not sure what size bolts these are actually supposed to be, but for me these are just 8mm hex heads. So I'm going to pop those off. Also pop off my lightweight fastener here, and then I'll be able to pull this panel off and get into all the bolts holding this cover on. Alright guys, so I got all these loosened up. Good practice is just to leave them sitting in here for when you pull this off. That way you don't have to remember which one goes in which hole. So I usually just pull the whole thing off, set it down with the bolts still in here. That way I don't have to remember which one goes in which hole. Just something I like to do, but you do you. Also want to point out, and this goes for really any motorcycle, but everything is going to have these little pry points here. One of them's right there. Got one right here. And I believe, yes, there's also one right here. You should not be sticking a screwdriver in this, because then you're going to screw up the faces that mate together, and chances are you're going to leak oil. So what you want to do is use these pry points and put something behind this that you could then pull the cover off. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and try to pry these off. I just got this little mini crowbar here. I'll just put this behind this one first. And there we go, it's already moving. It's not on there too tight. We'll get this one a little bit. Alright, that's moving. And I'll try to come up here to this last one and get in here a little bit. And then just pry that off a little. Alright, so it could wiggle around now. There we go. You also got to keep in mind the stator is magnetized, so it wants to literally stick in here. So if it feels like it's kind of difficult coming off, it's because it's literally just the magnet is sucking itself onto here. So you'll have to give it a little pull. I'm going to go ahead and put the camera down and pull this thing off. Alright, so the cover's off. I actually had a little bit of difficulty with this because of the cage here. It's kind of in the way, but I was able to kind of shimmy it around there and get this off without having to take off my cage. That's what it looks like on the inside. This is also a good time to look. I don't know if it's a common problem, but mine was leaking oil out of here a little bit somewhere, and I think I found what it was. Looks like this gasket was folded over here, so that was probably me when I was putting it back together over the winter. You know, sometimes you have a couple garage beers and then you have a couple more garage beers and you do stupid things like that. So make sure your gaskets are all straight and lined up when you reassemble things. Also, another important thing to note that I just noticed is this little guy here. This is one of the pieces of your starter gear. It goes in this, and then the other side of it goes in this cover right here, just to keep this gear in place. So when I pulled the cover off, this actually must have been kind of stuck inside of it. So definitely just make sure when you're putting it back together that this isn't somewhere sitting in here like it was on mine. Make sure all your starter gears are back where they are supposed to go. Alright, next step I'm going to do here is going to be figure out where exactly these two wires, we got one of them that's 3 wires together in this little wrap. That's for your stator. Then you got this guy here, which is, I don't know how many that is. A couple wires in this one, and this one runs up in here too. So by pulling on these, I can kind of see where they're going. I think to get the stator one off, kind of seems like it's right underneath my coolant reservoir here. So I think I'm going to pop off this coolant reservoir just to make it easier to get to, because like I said, I don't want to be trying to fish my hands in there and work on these plugs. A lot easier to just take the parts off and put it back together. Okay, so I got these guys unplugged. This, as you can see, I mean, there was like one of these harness plugs on here, and this thing is just literally completely fried. So I'm not really sure why that would happen, but I'm probably gonna have to rewire this. Actually, this end is from the rectifier, so this side will be getting replaced. This here, this is the one on the stator. You can just see how melted that got. I have no idea what would have caused that, but either way, that is definitely my problem. It could have been either of these two pieces that failed and almost started an electrical fire. But that's kind of scary, because if you guys are this far, you know that these plugs are literally right under your gas tank. So if something does catch on fire, that's not going to be good. So I'm glad I found this now before I caught on fire while I was riding, because that would suck. Alright, next step here is going to be actually pulling off the rectifier and the stator. Pretty sure that these are all, at least on mine, these are all 10mm. There's 4 of them holding your stator on there, and then there's just 2 of them here holding on the rectifier. So I'm going to go ahead and pop those off, and we'll update when I'm done. Alright, so this is pulled off. That just comes right out, just like that. I did have to use a couple persuasion tools here. It was kind of, I mean, it sits pretty tight on this little lip right here. So since I'm replacing it anyways, I didn't really care if I screwed it up, so I kind of popped it out of there. Also got the rectifier off, and this thing is absolutely filthy. This is definitely one of my gripes with Kawasaki on this bike. Why would you put this thing down here where it's just going to literally get caked in all this grease and road grime? So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of brake cleaner and just kind of clean all this up before I put it back together. Alright, you know, it doesn't look too much better, but at least I know I tried, so whatever. Just to compare, the reason I think that the Kawasaki design is terrible is because this is the design on my MT-09. This is where the rectifier is mounted. Right up underneath the seat. Not going to be getting too much dirt or anything on there. And I mean, that thing, this is a newer bike, but that thing's perfectly clean. Okay, so I just grabbed the new rectifier here, and check this out. This is what these plugs are supposed to look like. As you can see here, mine don't look anything like that anymore. They're completely, I mean, they're literally crunchy. They're just falling apart. Yeah, there's the 4-pin one. 4-pin one looks like it's still intact, but this 3-pin one just completely melted. Alright, next thing I'm going to do before I start putting everything back together is I'm going to take a razor blade here and make sure that I clean off all of this this old gasket sealant. I'll obviously pull this gasket off of here, but if you guys have never done this before, basically you're just going to kind of take this and just scrape off all this old stuff. Don't like dig into the metal or anything, just kind of like that. And then you could even go over it with if you have like a more abrasive type rag, like a cloth rag or something, you throw a little bit of gasoline or brake cleaner on it, it'll help break up the rest of the residue that's on here after you scrape it. So go ahead, do that before you start putting everything back together. Okay, next step here before I start putting these new pieces on is I'm actually going to gasket, or I should say gasket seal, around this face as well as this face. And I'm going to do that first because you want to kind of let that gasket sealant dry a little bit before you start reassembling everything. That way it doesn't just like mush inside of your engine case and stuff when you start torquing bolts down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is the stuff that I usually get. This Permatex Ultra Black gasket maker. Have pretty good results with it from all the times that I've used it on stuff. So I'm going to take this, put this little cap on it here, and then I'm just going to kind of do not a fat bead, but just a little bead all the way around this, trying to make it as continuous as possible so that we don't get any oil leaks. Okay, I got gasket sealant around this face. Admittedly, it's not my best work, but I think it'll be okay. And I also got it around this face. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this guy back in here. It'll be the same 4 bolts. I'm not going to show this because I think if you guys got this far, you remember how to put it back together. And also, I don't have a chest mount. I'm just holding this, and I'm probably going to need both hands. Okay, so quick little update. What I did is I went ahead and bolted on this new rectifier here. I've just got the wires currently resting up there, so they're out of the way. I went ahead and put the 4 bolts back in the stator here. Got that bolted down. This little piece here, it kind of sits in this groove. It's not really the best fit, and that might just be because of the quality of this stator. I'm sure if you got an OEM one it would be tighter, but I don't think this is going to cause any leaks or anything once it's all torqued down. But I guess time will tell. I'll make sure to update you guys if I have any issues with it. The final thing I did here is I went ahead and I took the gasket that came in this kit and I put the gasket on this face of the engine. Lined up all the holes and stuff and kind of just have it sitting on there. I didn't like press it down super hard or anything. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this guy, throw it on top of here, and get all the bolts through, and kind of I'm just gonna snug them down a little bit. You don't want to go full tight right off the rip, because again, this gasket maker stuff needs to dry. So you're just gonna want to kind of like almost hand tighten, finger tighten, whatever, all these bolts for now, and then I'll probably come back tomorrow once it's dry, because I think the cure time is like 24 hours or something. So I'll let it cure a bit and then do a final torque down. Okay, another quick little update. I got the cover back on, and I'm just going ahead and starting to tighten down all these bolts a little bit. Another important thing that I wanted to bring up is anytime you're putting a cover or something like this back on, that has bolts or something all the way around it, what you want to do is, good practice is, if I do this one first, kind of snug this down, then I want to kind of come over to the opposite side and do one. So then I'll probably hit this one, jump over to here, maybe get this guy, and then come up here and do one of these, and kind of just work my way around that way. They always say for like lug nuts, the star pattern, I guess is what they call it. Same thing applies to this. You kind of just want to make sure that this is going down evenly, so you're not getting one side that's all screwed up. Alright guys, so I got the cover back on. I got all these cables kind of back in their little holder clip things, and I added a zip tie as well for this. I think this wire is your like shift drum sensor, so that's what tells you when you're in neutral, essentially. It was kind of close to my sprocket here, so I just zip tied it so it's a little more out of the way. Next thing I'm going to do is probably go around on the other side of the bike here and just plug those wires back in, throw the coolant reservoir back on, and I'm probably just going to let this sit on its side overnight so that that gasket material can dry a little bit before I finish torquing all these bolts down and get it all back together. But really guys, that's pretty much it. So hope you enjoyed this and found it somewhat useful if you're running into the same situation. If any of you guys have had this problem before where those plugs literally like caught on fire, I would love to know what happened if you guys figured it out. So let me know in the comments if you've had this issue before. But yeah, other than that guys, appreciate you watching. Hopefully this helped someone out. It's my way of kind of giving back to the community on YouTube, because I know the YouTube mechanics are super useful. They helped me put together this entire bike. I literally got this thing in boxes and was able to put it back together just based on YouTube videos of other guys who did their research and figured it out. So it's kind of my contribution. Hope you guys enjoyed it and found some use. I'll see you next time.